Okay, so thanks for the experience. It was a very exciting game. You really surprised me in the opening stage with this f5. So after e4, e6, d4, d5, and knight to c3, you played f5. So in my opinion, it's a very bad move. Well, but I failed to exploit it somehow. Why it's bad? Because you're weakening lots of dark squares right from the start, and you get no visible compensation for it. So I'm not sure what is the best way to react to that, but I guess the way I played here, e takes f5 was okay. After e takes f5, though, I just decided to play bishop f4, which is a natural decision for a Blitz game. When you don't know the theory, you see the position almost for the first time. So the natural idea is just to try to fight for the e5 square somehow, and I decided to combine it with the development. But most likely, it was a better idea for me to try some like queen h5 check here.
Yes.
Because as you can see, this diagonal is quite weak, and with the help of this move, I kind of force you to play g6, and this weakens dark squares even more.
Yes, there and there.
Yeah, and I can come back, for example, to e2, so I'm not really losing a tempo. Maybe I can even castle on after that. So that was probably a bit more logical decision for me. So I played bishop f4. You decided to play c6. Well, maybe it makes sense to overprotect d5 and maybe prepare something like queen to b6. Probably I should have reacted with something like queen d2, preparing castling long, but yeah, instead I just played this move. And after knight to f6, I played knight to e5. So super straightforward, just immediately using this weakened square, occupying the outpost. But I believe it was not the best, because although now I have this outpost, but this knight itself is quite vulnerable. And you can simply continue with the development of your pieces and just attack it. And at some point, I may have not enough resources to support it. So I guess it was a bit premature. Instead, I could have tried probably something like bishop d3 or bishop e2, preparing castling, and then occupying e5 at the right moment. By the way, this way I could have prevented you from playing bishop d6, because now in this situation, the exchange of dark squared bishops is probably very good for white. Now for black, having so many dark squared weaknesses. So knight e5 was probably inaccuracy. At the same time, I wanted to have this f3 to control e4, just in case you land there with your knight. So as far as I remember, you played bishop to d6. I decided to play bishop e2. Again, I'm not sure about this decision. Probably bishop d3 was a bit more active, but for some reason I wanted to avoid having the bishop hanging in case you play knight e4 and I decide to take your knight.
You have to go back, maybe.
Absolutely, yeah. This is one of these Blitz games decisions where you try to avoid unnecessary calculation, want to make just a safer move. So you castled, I castled, you played queen to e7, you're starting fighting with this knight on e5, I played rook to e1, you played knight to d7, and I guess somewhere here I completely lost the track of what's going on. First of all, I guess I missed an interesting positional idea of just playing something like knight to d3, trying to exchange bishops, and then continue with the plan of occupying dark squares. But probably it's not that dangerous for black in this particular case. So the natural decision here for white is just to go away with the bishop somewhere to support the knight, and then against knight e4 to have f3. And probably in this position, it was safer for me to choose f1 square, just like how I decided to play bishop e2 instead of bishop d3. It was correct to stay away from d3 square, but I decided to play bishop d3, and then after knight to e4, I was already not in a very pleasant situation, because now my knight is under attack. I thought I would play f3, and that was a blunder. I actually played it, and it proved to be a very bad move. So you correctly reacted with capturing the knight here. And the point is, now I cannot really do this, which I thought I would be able.
This diagonal.
Yep, now you can play bishop to c5. I cannot go to the corner because of knight f2 with the fork. So I have to do something like this, and this loses because of, say, bishop e3, rook to e3, knight takes c3 takes, and then queen c5. So you're just attacking the rook, and when I protect it, you play f4, and that's over. So I realized it, but too late, of course. The knight was already on e5.
And the pawn on f3.
Yeah, that's true. So it was already too late for me, so I realized that, okay, maybe the only move for me now is just to take this knight. And you could have captured on e4. This way you could have attacked my bishop d3 and bishop f4 simultaneously. And if I do something like d takes e5, you can do this move.
Check,
And then after this move, for example, you just capture my bishop here. Now you have a pair of bishops and a better pawn structure, because this pawn is rather vulnerable. For example, after queen to d3, you can play bishop to f5 with the tempo. Then if you need, you can exchange bishops. My knight is quite bad here, limited with your pawns. You can bring another rook to e8. So at very least, you're slightly better here. Maybe not slightly, but just better. So that was your mistake, I guess, that you missed this opportunity. Was really promising. So we get back to this position where you have knight on e4. I have the pawn on f3. And yeah, at this point, when I decided to take on e4, just fe4, but instead you captured on d3. And here I've got this opportunity to take on d6 with the tempo. You captured with the queen. And now I have to take your knight. I also considered e5, but then at some point I realized there will be just knight takes back on a5 with the extra pawn, and I have no sufficient compensation. That's why I decided to take with the pawn. And now I believe the black should be completely okay. So you captured on e4, I captured on e4, you captured again. Probably you could have played something like bishop e6, simply completing the development. And if I play something like e5, yeah, I grab some space, but I also make my pawn constantly weak now because it is a backward. It's not an open file, but you have good options of attacking it somehow. And my knight, pay attention, is still quite bad, while your bishop can be improved later. So I think it's a solid position for black for sure. So taken is also fine, but it gives me some tempi. So I captured with the knight. I thought my only chance now is to grab the initiative because of your bishop, which is not developed. So maybe if I play this way, like attacking something each and every move, I'll get some chances, maybe some targets, and so on. And that was, in fact, the most critical position, because everything depends on where you go now with the queen. So it seems like you have to fight for light squares here, because I don't have a light square bishop and you have one. So I believe that something like maybe queen g6 was interesting. Maybe something like queen d5. I'm not sure which one is better, but I have a feeling that it's better to have the queen somewhere on the light square right now. Maybe later you can relocate it to the dark square, but for now it's important to create some threats as well. Otherwise it may be just a position in which only white creates threats, which is psychologically unpleasant, especially in Blitz when you're short of time. So if you have to protect your position instead of counterattack, well, there is a higher probability of making a mistake, according to my experience. So that's why something like queen g6 maybe. And if I give this check, you have probably some ideas like bishop e6, bishop d5, even sacrificing the pawn, but starting the attack against g2, maybe using the rook also, if I take on b7. If I start with the knight to c5, you may also consider something like this, sacrificing material, all right? But queen to b4, well, was just a solid decision to prevent me from giving any checks.
Yes,
but I think,
reason,
yeah, after this, position should be also quite, balanced. So I play queen d2, simple exchange of queens, could have been nice, no problems with that. After queen to b6, black shouldn't be bad, I guess, the move you made. But after knight to c5, we can see that white is getting some practical chances now. There is no risk for white anymore, but white has some threats. So I believe somewhere here you could have tried queen to c7 move, just preventing me from rook e7 with absolutely balanced position. You gave me this chance, so you played bishop f5. I invaded the 7th rank immediately. Now I indeed have some targets and probably better. But here, to be completely honest, we were both in a severe time trouble, as far as I remember. So you played rook to e8. I guess I should have captured the pawn. Instead of that, I played rook to e1. The idea was that, in that situation, I believed that it would be much more dangerous for you if I have the rook on the 7th rank, creating direct threats to your king. Maybe that was not correct. So objectively speaking, rook b7 is the best move, just grabbing the pawn, grabbing the material, maybe not even one pawn. So here, I suppose you made a right decision. Yeah, it took the rook. But after rook captured on e7, you could have started your own counterplay. So b7 is hanging, but you could have played something like queen b5 with the idea of b6. And simultaneously, as you can see, you start targeting f1 square. So it could have been very dangerous for white. But instead you made very passive move, bishop to c8.
To defend this pawn, yes.
And now, as you can see, your queen is completely misplaced. So your king is abandoned, basically, and, well, just a very natural move, attacking g7 the second time, and now you don't have a satisfactory defense. Because if you play g6, for example, it doesn't really help because I have numerous ways of getting to g7 anyway. And what's important, you don't have checks whatsoever, so no counterplay at all. You're not on time. So you decided to play rook f7. It's probably the most testing defense. It took me some time to realize that, okay, after rook e8 and rook f8, I have this move. But once I found it, it was already clear. So you cannot take the rook because of queen e8 checkmate. And it's basically over. So you try this h6, I captured, and then anyway, it's just a checkmate. So basically, you got some chances at the very beginning of the game, although you played a terrible opening, but I misplayed it like a complete patzer. And then you made several mistakes, probably not calculating things correctly when there was this pressure in the center. Then we had absolutely balanced position. But you started gradually making it worse and worse by a couple of, dubious decisions in a row. And at the very end, when it was already super critical and you should have come up with, very concrete decision after rook e7 instead of bishop c8, I mean this queen b5. Of course, such a decision takes time to find such a move, to realize that there is no other chance, but you already didn't have that time at your disposal, so you were already in time trouble, and no questions that the one which has this concentration of the pieces on one of the sides of the board benefits and wins, in the Blitz game at least, or in any other game when we deal with the time trouble.
Yes.
Yeah. But overall, I think it was a useful experience for both of us.
Thanks.